Welcome. My name is Beth Green, and this is Lighting the Way with Beth Green and Friends. So I'm Beth Green, otherwise known as Granny Rocks, and the friends will be coming on a little bit later. So today I'm going to talk about not coughing. I'm going to talk about 7 strategies for dealing with disappointment. Now, I just want to be clear. It's disappointment. It's not disillusionment. It's not discouragement. It's not dismemberment. It's none of those other disses. It's just disappointment. And we experience disappointment all the time. So let's get into it. And what I'm saying is that we have strategies, and they're usually unconscious, that we use in order to deal with disappointment, because disappointment is kind of painful. So today I'm doing something different because I wrote up some notes. I had so many ideas about strategies for dealing with disappointment that I thought I better write a couple of notes down because I will never remember everything on the list. So I'm not going to go into depth on any of these or we'd be here all day. I'm going to go through fairly quickly, but I did want to write them down. But that meant that everything else on the screen is in a different place. And I'm really wondering if I'm even going to be able to figure out what's what and who's who. So hopefully we are broadcasting live on YouTube and Facebook at the same time. Okay. So, disappointment is so much a part of life. I'm disappointed in my children. I'm disappointed in myself. Disappointed in my marriage. Disappointed by my trip to Brazil. I'm disappointed um, uh, uh, with this or that. I thought this was going to work and it was going to be wonderful, and it isn't. It's not working. It's not wonderful. I'm so disappointed. Okay, so what disappointment is obviously is when we have a certain desire for things to turn out a certain way or a certain expectation that they will come out that way, and it doesn't come out that way, we tend to be disappointed. It's not meeting what our hopes were, our expectations, our hopes, and our desires. Okay, so what is the first strategy? And these are not in any particular order, but it's the order that they came to me. One of the first things that we do when we're disappointed is we blame ourselves, right? It didn't work out because I wasn't prepared. I was a lousy wife or husband or companion, tour guide, whatever it was. I was a lousy teacher. I was a lousy parent. Oh, okay, okay. Now, what is now? Every one of these strategies has an upside and a downside. And that's what's so interesting about this. So, the downside to blaming myself for a disappointment is I get depressed. If I blame myself enough, I start feeling so negative about myself. I was like, oh, I didn't do this right. I didn't do that right. And the result is that I get depressed. Okay, so one of the possible outcomes of blaming myself is that I will get depressed. Now, is there an upside to blaming myself? Well, actually, there is. Maybe it's true that I didn't do a good job or I could have done better. So, if that's true, maybe I can learn something from it. Oh, I'm disappointed that this show didn't work out with me having notes on the screen. And so I've either learned how to do it better or I'm never doing it again because I can't handle technology or whatever it is. I might actually learn something. And so I have a choice there. I mean, if I blame myself, I could get depressed, but if I hold myself accountable, maybe there's some truth in what I'm thinking and maybe I can learn from that. Well, then the next favorite kind of reaction strategy to deal with disappointment is to blame others. Now, that is really, really important, right? We can blame our parents until we're dead. about how crazy we are, or how neurotic we are, or how dysfunctional we are. We can blame our partner. We can blame our job. We can blame our genes, our mostly our parents, our and our significant others. Okay, now, okay, now I'm not depressed because now I'm blaming them instead of putting all that negative energy into myself. I'm putting it out there. Wonderful. Doesn't that solve a problem? Well, there's a downside to blaming others. Um, I might actually avoid and miss the opportunity to learn something about myself. Maybe if I had looked within, I would have seen how I may have contributed to or been, in fact, the cause of a disappointment and a problem. So if I blame others, then I never have the opportunity to look inside and see what I might be doing that is either causing or contributing to this situation. So that's not good. And another thing that can happen if I blame others and don't I do this, I can become angry and I can start poisoning myself emotionally. You think there's no price to being angry? I mean, the price to being angry at myself is I get depressed. The price of getting angry at you is like I have this poisonous energy in me, and oh, it can go on and on and on. I think about it over and over and over. So, okay, this didn't work out the way I wanted, and it's your fault. And and my stomach is churning, and I'm getting kind of poisoned. Okay, that's pretty downside, I would say. Well, what about the upside? Well, maybe there's truth to what I'm saying. Maybe you did do something that undermined our project or that messed things up, or you were negligent or ignorant and didn't make an effort. Well, then maybe we can actually talk about it. Maybe you could improve. And, or maybe I'm going to change my situation. I'm going to get out of this. I mean, if every time I speak up in a marriage, for example, I get beaten, I think it's time to say, this is a problem. Maybe I'm contributing to it, but I can't be with somebody who beats me every time I do something that they don't like. So maybe I'll be motivated uh, to change my situation, to get out of an untenable situation. So, anger can be very motivating. It's like, okay, because when I feel angry, I feel strong. When I'm angry at myself, I feel weak. But when I'm angry at you, I feel strong. Okay. So sometimes that will enable me to do something different. So you see, blaming others, there's an upside and a downside to that too. But it depends on whether or not it's true. Oh, yes. But when we're in these moods, we're not really looking at whether or not something is true. So let's go on to number 3. I did promise you 7. Number 3, rail against fate and the gods. That is another strategy for dealing with disappointment. The universe is against me. It's a raw deal. God prefers someone else over me. I'm not lucky. All of this stuff is like railing against fate and the gods, not necessarily against my neighbor or my friend, but against the universe. Oh my God, them. Why don't they fix the potholes in the street? Right? I can rail against them. Okay, now what is the downside of that? Think about it. Well, if I'm railing against the universe in general, the gods or whatever divine presence I think there is, then if I stay in that angry place, then I lose any benefit of having any spirituality. I mean, spirituality does give me maybe a feeling of calm, of peace, of kindness, that kind of thing. And if I'm railing against the universe, I'm going to lose that. So that's pretty bad. That I don't feel good inside, and I'm lousy to others. Also, the downside of that is I might not be looking at my part or the part of other people because I'm just railing in general to the generic them, whoever them is. Now, what is the upside of railing against fate? I don't turn against myself. I don't become depressed. I don't hate myself. And I stay in harmony with the people around me. So, okay, so if we blame the universe, then you and I can get together and say, well, what can we do about it? We can get unified. So, wow, that's a good thing. We can unite and fight whatever it is that's oppressing us all. So, there it is. There's the upside of railing against fate and the gods. Okay, now I hope I'm not boring you to tears, and I'm going to move on to number 4. These are all, if you came in late, these are the 7 strategies that I came up with today to deal with disappointment when things don't work out the way we want them to. Okay, rationalize what happened. Oh, a lot of people do this, don't they? So they say, it was meant to be. I'm not disappointed. I trust the universe. It's all going to work out better. Yes, I lost that house, my dream house. I couldn't afford it. Somebody else bought it. But there's a much better house waiting for me, right? I'm sure you've heard that one if you haven't engaged in that yourself. Okay. Now, what is the downside of rationalizing what happened and saying, well, it's the best outcome? It's going to work out for the better. Well, I suppress my actual emotions. At that moment, instead of saying "Rrr," or boo hoo, my grief, I suppress it all, put a plastic smile on my face, and tell myself that I'm fine with everything. That isn't healthy. Whatever you repress is going to come back and bite you in the end, and you never grieve. So, and if I keep telling myself that it's for the best, let's say I lost a job. It went to someone else. I said, well, it wasn't meant to be. They were supposed to get it, not me, but something better will come along. Well, and then what about if nothing better comes along right away? Ugh. Then I have to rationalize that and say, well, there's something even better coming along. Oh, yes, and even better. And my 12th husband is really going to be the best. I may meet him after I'm dead, but after all, that shouldn't be a problem. So I'm setting myself up for a new disappointment. On the other hand, on the upside, there's I don't get outraged. I don't get depressed. I can stop myself from getting so anxious and discouraged because I tell myself that this is the right thing and it can keep me going. That's really important. Oh my God, each one of these has an upside and a downside. What are we going to do? Life isn't supposed to be complicated. You're supposed to give us easy answers, Granny, right? Like all those other people on YouTube and Facebook that will give you the simple answer, one answer, it's fine. Okay. Now here's another one that many of us have practiced. Number 5. By the way, in case you came late, I'm going to run through. The first one is I blame myself. The second, I blame others. Third is I rail against fate and the gods. I get really angry. At fourth was rationalizing what happened and saying it was for the best. Okay, number 5, eliminate disappointment altogether by expecting nothing or wanting nothing. We hear this a lot. If you have no desires, you will never be disappointed. Well, I don't know about you. I don't think I like that one. One of the downsides of that is life becomes kind of flat. You don't get excited. Like, oh, I'm looking forward to going to Disneyland. I personally have never gone to Disneyland and would never go to Disneyland, so I wouldn't be disappointed about that. But okay, so you can say part of the pleasure of going to Disneyland is the expectation, thinking about it, planning it like a vacation. Sometimes vacations suck, but planning them and thinking about them really give you a lift. Well, okay, so if you take away that expectation time, life becomes a little flatter. It's also just a little bit unnatural to have no expectations and no wants. It's like, wait a minute. I'm hungry. I want food. See, that's a normal human reaction. I can be really trying to suppress all my normal human reactions. That's not a great idea. On the other hand, what is the upside of expecting nothing or wanting nothing? I'm more relaxed. I'm not all tensed up, waiting to see, is this going to work out? Am I going to sell my house? Am I going to find the perfect house at the ocean? Am I going to find the perfect life partner, job, orgasm, whatever it is? So, hey, all of that causes a lot of stress. Supposing I don't expect anything, I don't want anything, and I just let life happen, and I'm in allowance of that, and that's so great. I could be more relaxed. Okay, got it? Let's try number 6. I distract myself. Oh, I bet you've done this too. I bet you have. Okay, if one of the downsides of distracting myself. Let's say, okay, I go eat ice cream. Oh, yes. When you're a child and something terrible happens to you, your parent says, let's get some ice cream, right? That somehow is going to distract you from your unhappiness. Well, great. So then you get used to constantly indulging in something to distract yourself. And what happens? We don't deal with our emotions. We don't learn how to deal with disappointment. We don't have to deal with anything. We just distract. Food or let's have sex or uh, let's go run play or let's go to the bar or we might even do reckless things just to distract. We might need bigger and bigger distractions. Oh my god. So that's kind of not a good thing because we're sort of out of touch with ourselves and we're just playing into these uh, useless, sometimes useless behaviors. So, see, I mean, the moment the distraction may be good. See, like all of these, there are good sides to all of this, but there's the dark side. Okay, what is the upside of distracting ourselves? Well, we might be feeding ourselves with positive energy and hope. Supposing instead of going out, drinking and driving recklessly, let's say I distract myself by listening to some music that fills me with hope, or I call some friends and I get love, or I get positive energy. Oh my God, I'm still distracting myself, but I'm distracting myself in a healthy way. Wow, see, that can be good. So I'm going to say something about all of this in the end, but I don't know what, because I'm not sure what to say about this. There's ups and downs to all of this. The last one, the seventh one that I'm going to mention today, and you may have a dozen others that I didn't think of, is endure. How do you deal with disappointment? You endure it. And you can do all these other things, but you also realize that life is full of pain. And if you want to live, you're going to have to endure pain. That can be physical pain, it can be emotional pain, it can be societal pain. I mean, a lot of us are enduring the current state of our nation. Uh, and we can still do positive things. We can still nurture ourselves and other people. We can do healthy things for ourselves. We can still make contributions to the world while we are enduring pain. Listen, guys, I think ultimately, we've got to endure or we won't endure, meaning we won't live. So I am going to open up my screen. Oh, somebody said all clear on Facebook. That was a while ago, but I didn't see that comment. Okay. So before I make any final comments, I'm going to bring on my friends. The first one up tonight is James Maynard,
Hello, hello.
wearing a very nice shirt, I must say.
Thank you.
Number 2 is Todd Benton.
Hello.
And well, that's actually number 3 because I'm number 1. And then number 4 is Lizzie Treehart.
Hello.
Okay, as always, I don't The panel does not know what I'm going to talk about. Not the topic, not the content. I usually don't. By the way, that actually worked. You can see why I made notes tonight. There was so much I would never have remembered it. Not with my memory. Then you would all have been disappointed. Okay, so let's have some of our panel comment on, did you relate to the 7 strategies for dealing with disappointment? Do you do some of them more than others? And did you relate to the upsides and the downsides? Or do you have another one that you would like to share? Yes, James.
Well, first of all, I'll share that what used to be my very favorite mode was to say, I got a raw deal, right? I got a raw deal over and over and over, this way, that way, and the other way. And so I found a lot of comfort in that because I could blame others, blame fate, blame the world, etc., etc. But in recent times, um, I've shifted over to blaming myself.
Wow.
And but the upside of that is I've been able to learn and grow from my mistakes and see what I did to create the problem, the disappointment. And if that gets to be too much, then I distract myself. I divert my attention to something else. It might be the news, it might be sports, anything, something to divert myself, to go into a different world, my own little world, my mind, my mental world, and therefore feel safe and secure.
I love it, James. I identify. By the way, Amy on Facebook says, I've definitely used all 7 strategies. It sounds like, James, you have used a lot of them too. And did you relate to the down and upsides of both of all of the ones that you talked about?
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
good, good. Okay, who would like to share next?
I'll share next.
Todd.
I'm with James on the smorgasbord approach. But I think I have some that are primary. Probably blame others is a big one. Are you surprised? Hello. Blame others,
Oh, yeah.
rationalize, distract myself, and maybe a little of endurance, but I'd say mostly it's blame others, rationalize. I didn't. No, I don't. I don't. I don't do too much of not expecting anything. That's not an easy one for me. I don't care about the upside and distracting myself. Yeah.
Oh, good. So it sounds like what I've been saying really hit a nerve for everybody,
Hmm.
that we really see this in ourselves. I love it, and I love the honesty of the group talking about this. Anything else that you do that I didn't cover? That,
Not that I could think of. I
yeah.
was too focused on listening to what you were saying, so I could say something intelligent or at least relate at this point in the conversation because I knew this was coming. So, yeah.
Okay, well, that's great. You'll probably think of something brilliant in the middle of the night or after we hang up. Yes. Lizzie, what about you?
Yeah, so I probably go more into blaming others
Mm,
and or blaming myself.
mm,
It was interesting how you gave the positive and negatives of all of them, which I hadn't really went thought about before.
mhm.
Um, I'm sure I've done them all, but except the not expecting anything.
Okay.
I guess I'm not on that one. I might have the intention, but didn't go too
But
far.
it's good to see that that is not the greatest thing either.
Hmm.
A lot of people tell you just don't expect anything, and not, you will levitate, and you'll be above it all. And I'm saying there's a downside to that. So, uh, yes, Amy said, and I relate to the upsides and downsides of each one of them. Of each one of them, it's so easy to shift from one to another, depending on whether I am willing to look at my responsibility in something or would rather avoid that. Yes, I think we all relate to that. Well, this is good. It seems like we all really favor blaming.
Mm.
The first thing is who did this
Mhm.
and whose fault is this? And we very rarely think, well, was this inevitable? Was this just part of the setup? And what's the real cause? You know, one of the things that I didn't say is when we blame people or ourselves for something, we are not looking deeply. And sometimes, if we look deeply into something, we'll look at the causes rather than the person at fault. And that is extremely different. For example, let's say I didn't get a job. I went to somebody else, and I thought I should have gotten that job. Well, I could blame the person who's doing the hiring. That would make a lot of sense, right? Or I could blame myself that I didn't have the credentials, or I did lousy on the interview, or whatever it was. They were prejudiced against me. But maybe there has been a change at the company, and all of a sudden they can't afford the salary that I need because of tariffs or something else that might be going on in the society. So by blaming, we're not looking at underlying causes. Or even, let's say, this person who didn't hire me had to hire the niece of the CEO because they would have lost their job. And we're thinking, that lousy son of a, but actually not looking at the fact that there is an underlying cause, which is called nepotism, the misuse of power to benefit our friends or our relations. So what I'm saying is that all of these things that we're doing, and I hadn't thought about this before this very minute, honestly, they take us away from looking at what is really going on and why is it like, oh, we go to the homeless. I was just interviewed by a guy who did a show called We the Unhoused. They call them unhoused instead of homeless. And, he was talking about a variety of problems, but it's the blame and the demonizing of the unhoused. You could say, well, they're drug addicts or they're mentally ill or something. Yeah, but then why? So it's easy to blame people for their fate or for what's happened to me, but it's not easy to find out why those things have happened. Amy said our society is so blame oriented, and so am I. And that is such an important point that you're making, Amy, because we are not taught to think, to analyze, to understand. We are not. And that starts from childhood. We hear our parents blaming each other or yelling at each other, or we're blamed, or Hispanics are blamed, or immigrants are blamed, or, the rich are blamed rather than the system. Karen said, I think blaming and distracting are my main go tos. Yeah, good for you. So I think as we're coming to the close today, if we're trying to keep to about half an hour, which we are trying, does it feel like we've covered enough for one show, or does anyone have anything else that they would like to share at this moment? I want to give you that chance. Yes,
Yeah,
James.
just quickly, I'd like to say that we're conditioned to blame. We see it with our parents, but we also see it in society. Our whole legal system is built on blaming one party or the other, fault finding. Our politicians, our leaders, are constantly trying to blame others, the opposition, and so we're surrounded in a sea of blame, and so it's difficult not to get caught up in that. So it's helpful to me to just focus on myself. What have I done, and how can I be accountable?
Very good, James. And that was really Amy's point, that our society is so blame oriented that we get conditioned to do that. But remember, and as we are tuning out, that there is an alternative which has to do with critical thinking, deep analysis, looking for causes rather than looking to blame. So I'd like to close the show on that note and see if I can close this show actually without making a total disaster out of it. Just a second. Thank you so much for coming. Please give this a thumbs up on YouTube, on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Facebook. Leave, if you're listening to this later, leave your comments. Please share this program with people because we're all doing it. And it's really blocking us from making the progress and even making the social revolution that so many of us are craving today. So, with that, I invite you to come back next Wednesday for another Lighting the Way with Beth Green and Friends. And also to remind you that Thursday night at 7 p.m. Pacific Time, James and I do magical improvs with the Kindred Spirits Band, and we play music. And come back at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Time next week. And now I'm going to start with the music and see if I can do this right.